I'm going to go ahead and read the statement. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Before we begin the proceedings of our board committee meeting, I need to highlight safety protocols and expectations. Based on the latest guidance and the recent CDC announcement placing Kent County in the substantial risk category for transmission of the COVID-19 Delta variant, effective August 17th, 2021, we are requiring masks indoors for anyone on the grounds of GRPS property for all students, staff, and visitors, regardless of vaccination status. Public comment cards and meeting agendas are located on the tables within the board chambers at both entrances. Once you fill out a comment card, please submit this in the drop box next to the comment cards. Our board assistant will collect the cards when I call for public comment and deliver them to the board table. Individuals will be called on one at a time to the presentation table. Members of the public attending the meeting electronically will be able to provide public comment in the manner outlined in the meeting notice. On behalf of our administration and this board committee, thank you for being here in attendance with us. So I will call this meeting to order. And I'm assuming we don't have any public comment. Is that correct? Thank you. You want to go ahead, Dr.
All right, thank
Byrne?
you, Ms. Davis, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you this evening, and Mr. Ross. Tonight's meeting, let me walk you through the agenda. So we will have an instructional council update by Ms. Jane Neiman, who's an educator at Union High School. As you are probably well aware, the instructional council chair switches every year. One year the administration has the chair, and the next year the GREA has the chair. So this is a GREA year. We haven't seen Jane in a while, so we're glad that she's back. After Jane provides her presentation, we are going to have a brief update on SEL work, specifically as it relates to the work that we are doing with Castle. So Mr. Atkins will present on that. We've asked Mr. Lewis and Mr. Emmanuel Armstrong to present on counseling services at the high school level. That was one of the requests that we received. And then lastly, we are going to ask Ms. Bridget Cheney and Mr. Matthew Beresford to come forward to present on field trips, to share a list of the field trips that take place at pre-K through 12. And then, of course, Ms. Maggie Malone, Jonathan Harper, and then others will be able to contribute if there are additional questions as it pertains to field trips. So without any further ado, we'll have Ms. Jane Neiman come forward with an instructional council update.
Hi. Hi. I'm Jane Neiman. I'm a teacher at Union High School and chair of the Instructional Council this year. The Instructional Council met on September 23rd and October 28th so far this year. Our initial meetings have been mostly organizational. We set dates in September for the rest of the year for the meetings. And due to the extreme sub shortage, did not have a lot of educators present at that meeting. However, we are meeting in person at Grand Rapids GRPS University, and our meeting in October 28th was better attended by instructional staff as well as our personnel from Franklin campus, our curriculum supervisors, and the other members of the council. And at that meeting, we got to know each other a little bit and discussed issues and went over invitations that I sent out to people to present on pilot courses that are being piloted this year, and any curriculum proposals that need to come back for a second step review that are completed. So at this time, we have had no presentations, but we do expect to have 2 next month in our meeting in November, which is the 18th. Okay. And we will see more in the future. There are a few courses being piloted in different schools in the area. And as of yet, have not seen any new proposals, but we are expecting some second step to come, other proposals to come back with their second steps from city and some other schools. Okay. So that's kind of where we are right now so far this year in the year. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I guess my only question is, you said you sent out like postcards or something?
I sent out email invitations to people that had presented course
That
syllabi and
had?
that have already done so.
Okay.
And so there's different stages of the process. The initial process, they come in, they propose a new course, they check with their curriculum supervisor and their building principal to make sure that there is a need and a desire by the students to attend, to be enrolled in the course, and also that it's not already being offered anywhere in the course description, the course guide. So they come initially with their ideas and they fill out the first part of our curriculum form, and then they take it back and they finish it. They align everything with the standards, come up with a pacing guide, course content, material, and assessments, make estimates as far as the materials needed to teach the course, and then they come back in the second stage with that final plan with the curriculum form completely filled out. And then if approved, they pilot the course. And then they come back and report on that piloted course to see how it went, what changes need to be made and finalized to the curriculum before it is officially added to the course guide and approved. SDS gives it a course code and makes sure that we have someone with the proper endorsement to teach it.
SDS, sorry.
Student data services,
Oh, okay.
systems,
Okay.
help me out there, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear about proposals that you hear in November. then.
Yeah, we have some great things coming down the pipe, so we're excited too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mel Atkins, Executive Director of Community Student Affairs. I'm here to give a brief update on social emotional learning and our work what we have began to do with CASEL. CASEL stands for the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. And so, just a brief history. We look back in 2016, we received a Wallace planning, a $400,000 Wallace planning grant. And it was to work with CASEL 5 years ago to really learn about SEL and to apply for a much larger grant. We ultimately did not get the larger grant, but what we did do is some great work that we're resurfacing now. So the first thing that we looked at was our vision, this is for SEL, our SEL vision statement and definition. And so without reading it to you, some things that stand out to us is like fostering hope, belonging, and it's for adults and scholars. Emotional skills, thriving. The SEL definition, so we talk about the whole child here a lot in GRPS. So we thought that was important to bring it in here. And then this includes focusing on social and emotional learnings of scholars and adults by teaching the 5 competencies. And so those 5 bullets are recognizing and managing their emotions, demonstrating care and concern for others, the positive relationships, and responsible decision-making, and handling challenging social situations are really 5 competencies that stress that it has to be taught to adults first, and then scholars second. And so we know just briefly the benefits of SEL, but just to highlight a few around improvement in student social skills, declining student anxiety, there's long-term investments, and ultimately, there's a cost savings if you invest early and often. And then we know teachers, and there was a professional development actually yesterday, a district professional development yesterday that hit on some of wellness for yourself. But we know they're more likely to stay in the classroom if you teach these adults and students these SEL skills. And then we know in the future with employment, mental health, everything else that supports this as well. And so CASEL has a framework, and the framework really, when you think about the definition, there were 5 bullets, and the 5 bullets are right here: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And underneath those, it's kind of, remember, it teaches adults and students, and when you look at it, just making sure both are aware, you can manage your emotions, socially that you're aware of what's going on, you have the necessary relationship skills to work with peers, and you make responsible decisions. There's explicit things that happen and are taught to make sure that happens. And then with this, it's also, with those 5 competencies, it's looked in the classroom, in schools, with families, and communities. And so there is a partnership with family and community engagement to make sure that's a key piece of this work as well. But it happens in all those settings. Then the Castle's theory of action is really these four items. First, you got to build foundational support. Then you strengthen adult SEL competencies. Then you go to the students, promote SEL for students. Then you reflect on data for continuous improvement with those things. And so they're not, and sometimes you go back and forth as needed, but making sure that, first we got to build the foundation. You got to do that first, and that's the step we're on right now with SEL. So that's my brief update. Any questions so far?
So when you say build the foundational support and plan, is that professional development that they had yesterday part of that, or what are some other?
Yep. So that was not connected to the work with Castle, but it could have been, and I would say, really what that means is the foundational support is where are we going as a district? We're making first the district team understands what SEL is. What's the plan, and then eventually, because I know there's a few times we asked about curriculum, and we don't start with curriculum. You start with adults. You start with the foundation, and so we're doing that, and then we're on target, for example, to go through that process of identifying the curriculum, with community, with teachers, with students, with their input, and we're going to have that, by in the summer, early fall at the latest. With that, for example.
Okay.
For clarification, you'll have that process started by the summer or
No,
completed?
we have it purchased, and so we're starting that process, and we're going to start with Castle in January. I'm laying out what that entails, and I'm expecting in the upcoming months after that, we'll have somewhat of a public process so people can give input and what we're looking for in GRPS. We don't want it to be 4 or 5 people making that decision.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am here to present around counseling services regarding college and career readiness and some of the things that we're doing within the counseling department to support students. I've asked Mr. Armstrong to join me this afternoon or this evening, early evening, to give his thoughts on or his feedback on some of the programs that we offer as well, so we have a thorough process of communication with you guys today. So one of the things that we are doing to help promote college readiness is we are ensuring that all students are connected back to the Michigan Merit Curriculum, which has been established and adopted by the board and by the policies that you have established. We have a program, it's called Zello. We just got done reviewing the MOU. We just had the MOU signed off on. And Mr. Armstrong is going to share with you some of the things that Zello brings to the table to support our students.
Yeah, so good evening. Zello is an online software program for students that helps students build foundational skills, knowledge, and ultimately a post-secondary plan. It will also produce an educational development plan, which we call EDPs. Zello was formerly known as Career Cruising, so ultimately it's a dashboard or a one-stop shop for students to develop those post-secondary plans.
When do they use that program?
We start in grade 7. State of Michigan requires students to have it when they exit their 8th grade year. So we actually start a year early, and so they use the program 7th through 12th grade.
Used integrated in what capacity? I mean, I'm assuming is it part of any classroom curriculum, or how are students nudged to engage with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very intensive. So we're looking at using it in our academic strategies courses, our advisory times. And also we look to train teachers. We've trained teachers before, so teachers can go inside. There's a curriculum that's set and they can integrate it into.
So does every student utilize this, or is it just in certain classes?
No, absolutely. Every student is required. So this is
Okay.
this is a state mandate.
Okay.
And so we at GRPS, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that students start using it as early as 7th grade. So every student has it. We have accounts for all of our students through grades 7 through 11. And then our intent this year, Zello is kind of transformed for career cruising. It's more user-friendly, it's more student-centered. And so our intent is that we have teachers come alongside this as well. So it's not something that rests solely in the counseling department. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I remember career cruising from school. Have you had any feedback from the students as far as if they find it helpful, or?
Yeah, so this will be a baseline year for us because we've used career cruising before. Students love it. Career cruising was dated, and so this new platform it kind of speaks to today's student, if you will. It's more intuitive, more user-friendly. And so this will be a baseline year with Zello, but not with, the entire process of career cruising.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
And I do have a question as well. So I am sure Dr. Roby is tired of me asking about college and career readiness because I have a senior this year. And so as a parent navigating some things, I kind of see there are just some things I don't know. I haven't been to college in a long time. So are they having a takeaway that would help inform parents and families? For instance, my daughter just knew she wanted to go to law school, but we were really struggling with what that undergrad major would be. And so this is interesting for me. She does tell me like they took assessments and things. But I'm wondering if like as a parent, I could have said like, let's log into your account and it'll give me a better understanding. It'll allow me to help her some more. Like what's their takeaway that will help guide them?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. So what's happening right now as we speak in quite a few of our schools, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but we're having college application and essay workshops. So we put that out to students where if they need additional help, which a lot of students do, and what's happening right now, we have one-on-one where we're working with those students.
Is that every school or certain schools?
No, every school is required to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Lewis will probably talk about it a little bit more. And we're jumping a little bit, but we have a on-site admissions day on December.
I'm sorry,
9th.
yep, I don't want you to feel like you have to jump ahead.
No,
So I just,
okay.
for that program specifically though, students will be able to have like, since 7th grade, you've been doing this kind of work and it can guide you in a certain direction.
That's exactly what it does. So at each grade level, there are certain benchmarks, and we as a district, we assign the benchmarks. So we're saying by grade 11, just for instance, students should have some kind of work experience. Well, now you want to start building your resume, and that'll be in there. So at each grade level, the information is updated, and then you as a parent should be receiving information as far as the career pathway that your child has selected, and you as a parent having access to the portal as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great questions. So as counselors work with their building level teams to build master schedules, they do offer advanced placement courses to students. All students have access to advanced placement courses. Dual enrollment happens at all of our high schools. Most of the courses that we offer from a dual enrollment perspective are on-site. So those classes take place on-site at those high schools. There are some opportunities for students to go off campus and take some of those dual enrollment classes at GRCC as well. We are working with Mr. Kurt Johnson to maybe expand the offerings to other schools. colleges, but we are currently in the mix, and we are having an MOU agreement with Grand Rapids Community College. We have a IB program that's at City from a high school perspective. We have a lot of college visits across the board. You'll probably see some of those when they go through the field trips that Mr. Beresford and Ms. Cheney are going to go through later after this presentation. And then on-site admissions. Mr. Armstrong talked about on-site admissions. That process, I believe, is going to take place on December 9th. Students have until November 12th to get all their applications into the publics of college public universities for the state of Michigan, and then they're going to make decisions and provide those decisions to students on the 9th of December.
I'm sorry, what did you say that date was where they have to have it?
November 12th.
Okay.
And then, classroom guidance lessons, Mr. Armstrong's going to cover the content there.
Yeah, real briefly, the content of the classroom lessons when counselors go in to the actual classrooms is focused on academic achievement, personal social well-being, and post-secondary planning.
So credit audits as an incoming ninth grader through 10th or 12th grader will have opportunities each year. It usually happens once a year where they'll have credit audits. Counselors will sit down with each student or scholar and go through where they are, where they currently sit as far as credits, what they need to take for the next year. Are they on track or are they off track? And figure out a plan to ensure that all students stay on track so that they can graduate with their cohort that they came in with. College and Career Readiness course happens at the 11th grade level. That's a course to help students prepare for the SAT, identifies skill gaps that students have within the SAT coursework. We're currently looking with our ESSER funds to standardize the process across the board so every school is using the same program to help support this process. And we're looking at a program called Academic Approach. And so the last bullet there is a senior summit. The senior summit typically takes place in the fall prior to Thanksgiving. We made a decision to push that back until February this year. However, we're doing on-site admissions again, as we stated, on December 9th. You want to speak on the Senior Summit?
Yeah, real briefly, Senior Summit, that's really a staple event for us at GRPS. We've been doing it close to a decade now. And so Senior Summit, in a nutshell, you'll have 600 to 700 seniors who we anticipate on graduating. Folks behind me have served as facilitators, and some of the topics are interviewing skill, resume writing, scholarships, careers in the military, or connecting with historically Black colleges and universities.
Some of the financial supports that we do to support our scholars as it relates to being prepared to go to college. We have FAFSA nights that are offered for parents and students or scholars. We verify whether or not our students, especially the students that are at Union High School, how they qualify as a challenge scholar. Do they qualify for the entire funding source, or what percentage they may qualify for? We are starting that. We've done that last year for the Promise Zone as well, to ensure that students know what they qualify for so that they can participate in the Promise Zone process.
What kind of turnout do you get for these nights? Is it just invite only?
You're talking about for the FAFSA nights. So the FAFSA nights, it's an invite to all 12th grade students and their families. Mm-hmm. They have to provide some financial information. They go online, they set up their accounts through FAFSA, and they go through the process of completing the application process.
I can say for UPrep, it was mandatory. Like my daughter would get a grade, so we had to either prove that we'd already completed the FAFSA or we had to show up for that night.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add through that, October was College Awareness Month, and so what we've done from our office is to require that schools host FAFSA nights, and we partnership with some of our institutions of higher learning, GRCC very heavily, and GVSU as well. So we have the experts around FAFSA come in and help actually facilitate, and the hope is that our parents will leave those FAFSA nights with their FAFSA submitted. Two College Through College, or known as TCTC, has been around for a while. It's a strong partnership between GRPS, our community's children, and local colleges and other institutions of commerce and business here. And the ultimate goal of TCTC is to ensure that GRPS students not only graduate from high school, but that they have post-secondary attainment. And so there are several subcommittees in that organization or that partnership. One of the large ones that's very effective is the wraparound services, where we as a community are reaching out to students who've graduated from GRPS to make sure that they have everything that they need in order to be successful. And so that's a very strong partnership as we talk about students persisting and ultimately receiving a degree.
The last bullet point there talks about the college planning guide or the college planning roadmap. And this may have come out of the work with Ms. Grant, right? But this has been developed this year. It's a 2-year process for 11th graders to begin the work of preparing for college. Some of the topics talks about setting the course, so what that means, how to gather the right tools for the process, which is like financial aid, supports. Then it talks about staying the course, identifying those colleges and universities that you want to apply to. It talks about SAT scores, tracking where you are with college preparedness, reaching the destination. So now your kid or your student or your scholar has been accepted to somebody's college or university. What's the next steps? What do you need to do moving from that point on until actually entering into college that fall? So we've created this roadmap here. Print should be done on the 11th, I was told today. So our goal is to cycle it out to seniors this year. We're also trying to form a electronic copy also, so it's not just in paper, but it'll be held electronically as well. So they can have a fillable document that they can just type in and enter data, and it's stored. So if you want to
I love that.
pass it around for me. Thought it was pretty unique, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for working on this.
So as it relates to career readiness programs, some of the partnerships that we've developed, GRCC, we have the MTech Center. They have quite a bit of programs that our graduates can participate in once they graduate. Most of them are maybe a 10 or 18-week program. They can take those programs and have specific job skills that they can take out into industry and be able to participate within industry and make a good living financially. GRCC, this is a new program called One Workforce Program, somewhat tied into MTech. Offers the same type of program, but it partners up with those advanced programs so that we can meet the needs of employers that are in the industry. So GRCC prepares them for those high demand careers. KCTC is a program that can be supported within the high school, so kids will have an opportunity as juniors and seniors to participate in that program and get some specific job skills as they are a high school student. So we have 2 schools that have various academies. They have job-embedded job skill programs, as well as internships that they can participate in. Also, the job shadows is another, typically that's in the 10th grade, that we utilize job shadows, but that is something I know UPrep, I think this year is going to be participating in a job shadow with one of the law firms locally in town. Then we talked about Zello, and that's pretty much helps identify career pathways, specific job skills, and what some of the fastest growing industries and what skill sets do you need to be able to participate there. Career Quest, which is a job fair that's held downtown, very large. It's held at the DeVos Place. A lot of industry there, and kids get an opportunity to do some pretty unique hands-on activities while they're there to figure out if that's something that they want to partake in. And then the last item is work-based or career learning. That's under development. We are working with the counseling team to develop a work-based learning program, which has some oversight from the Department of Education through the state of Michigan. And so we're trying to develop a program. Hopefully we can have some type of pilot ready to go during second semester to kind of test out what we're developing. And so we'll see what happens there. But this is definitely a program that we'll be implementing for the fall of next year. That'll be across the board.
And I'm sorry, just to make sure I'm tracking, what industry does that focus on?
This will focus on all industries, but specifically those industries, like if a kid identifies the industry through Zello and they want to go get a job through that industry, they can work within that industry and get high school credit for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and maybe this is part of the pilot, I don't know, but how, if I have a career in something that I think I would love to have a kid shadow me or work with me because they are interested in that career, who do I talk to? How do I sign up?
So that's what we're developing right now.
Okay.
But typically that process is going to happen through the counseling department. So the student will say, hey, I've got a job, I want to be a nurse, and that's the industry I want to go in. And so now the counselor will help support that process, right? Trying to link that person up with someone that may be a nurse, maybe they can do a job shadow and support that process that way.
And if I can add to that, this was a program that GRPS had years ago. And I know through some of our partnerships with business associations and neighborhood associations, we would have representation from GRPS at that table where if a student was interested in becoming a nurse, that we would start within our community to try to find those local organizations. So we have a template that we're still developing, but we have done this work before, so we're not starting from scratch.
And we are working with a couple other school districts to see what their process and protocols are, so that we ensure that we meet the criteria of everything the state has laid out for us.
Yeah, I think the thought that keeps coming to my mind as you're presenting is that there's just so many good opportunities that we're providing, and I'm wondering how we can make all of these things more known. Does that make sense? Because I mean, I just think as a parent of younger kids, I would have no idea about any of this, but it's so intriguing, and I think it could draw people to our district too. So I appreciate everything.
I appreciate that comment too. That makes a lot of sense. Now that I'm working with Mr. Armstrong, we'll see what we can make happen.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, do you?
No, thank you.
No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, Academic
Hello.
Achievement Committee. It's your favorite instructional EDs here to update you on field trips. And field trips is kind of, maybe it's a boomer term, but there's no boomers in this room. So, I want you to think of it as immersive, real-world learning experiences that our scholars are going on. Every one of these trips have a sizable packet, which starts right with the learning standards. that they're going to be exploring while on the trip with their staff. So that's important to remember. And then also, all of our scholars, you know, they have, as you know, varied background experiences or schema, right, that they bring to our classrooms every day, depending on what they may or may not have explored before outside of school hours. And so that's really one of the really important pieces of all of these trips through the grade levels is experiencing maybe new passions, getting a spark, right, that might lead to, in the secondary years, exploring those career fields. So we've got 3 slide decks, pages of different trips. And so we are not going to read them line by line, but we're happy to hit a couple highlights and then do some Q&A after. So, Bridget, what's one of your favorites on this page here?
I love the art museum because it is providing students with that feel of art can be living and breathing, and I can interact, because along with the art museum, we have the 3rd grade language artists, where kids work to merge 2 animals together and create that during art class. And then the corresponding piece of it is they're writing the story about the animal that they've created and what the name is. So that's always a good one.
One of my favorites is the Immerse program, that week-long Immerse in the 5th grade year at the Public Museum, which really allows every 5th grader across our district to explore like a museum student would, right? And then if they feel really drawn to that, maybe then it's strategically placed at 5th grade to allow all to learn in that model, but then also apply if they wanted to go towards that middle school.
One of the important things I think to note is when we selected these field trips to present is most of them listed are for all students across the district. Are there others that happen at a school by school? Sure, absolutely. Some are particular to perhaps the theme, some are particular to something maybe the school itself or certain grade level at a school is really, has really immersed themselves into. So it is a wide variety, and I think one of the most important things for our students is just that, the wide variety, right? Because interest-based matters. It helps to keep kids engaged. It helps to, as Matthew said, expound upon things that maybe they've had a little bit of exposure to, or maybe they know nothing about but would like to dig more deeply into, and we've been the catalyst for that through a field trip. So I always think that's important to note. And then, like I say, the ones that are listed primarily for K through 5 anyway, or 1 through 5, are the ones that are across the district. We do have schools that do other things as well. And there are some pilots that we listed too, because we're excited about some emerging partnerships. The culinary arts and the Grand Rapids Ballet and things like that. So it definitely is something that we work to incorporate more along the way, that are standards-based and high interest for the students of our schools. And what else were you going to say about that, Matthew?
Maybe teach a little paddle control there with paddling and canoeing, the former canoe mobile. That spring tradition for our 8th graders is always fun to watch a scholar that might be really nervous to climb into the canoe, but then after a little while they feel pretty comfortable and are paddling all around, don't want it to end.
Yeah, I was just going to make a couple comments as I was looking at this slide deck prior to the meeting, and also just noticing, and I knew this from having kids in the district, but we have so many opportunities for our kids in Grand Rapids Public Schools as far as these field trips or experiences outside of the school building go. At 5th grade conference for my daughter, they were talking about the museum experience, and I had no idea that it was even a thing until the conference. But I think what it also added for my daughter, who is wondering about other schools and the theme schools, is she's super torn between staying where she's at and wandering off, and it gave her a little bit of a nudge to like, well, even if I don't go there, I get to experience this. And I think that is a highlight for our neighborhood schools.
Absolutely.
They're still getting to experience everything that we offer in Grand Rapids. It's not just pinned to our theme schools, and I think that's really important to highlight.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I also am a huge advocate of all the field trips at the early years because I really think it's foundational for them to have things to write about and things to read about. It just puts more meat into the reading that they have when they know what it really looks like in person and what it feels like and smells like. And so I really appreciate that about Grand Rapids Public Schools.
Good, thank you.
I'm curious, a couple things though. One is the pilot with culinary arts. Just wanted to hear a little bit more about that. I guess that sounds like a hands-on type of thing, but just wanted to hear more about it.
Sure, and I will defer to, is it Jonathan, is that you or is it Maggie? I was wondering, I thought it was probably Maggie, but I wasn't positive, so, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Great to see everyone today. Thanks for the question. So in our arts enrichment field trips, we examined all of our trips since we had a couple years where we didn't have the trips. So just really reflecting on evaluation and also looking at diversifying what our students are exposed to. So we have developed some really awesome culinary arts programs at GRCC, for example. And so we're starting to engage in dialogue about what that can look like to expose students to a different form of arts as well as the traditional. So it's really in the formative stages at this point.
Cool. Just curious. Thank you.
We could have the next Iron Chef in GRPS. I mean, come on.
Just right. My other question was not just for that, but for all the activities, sort of some insight on sort of assessing engaging impact on learning outcomes and for the different activities. Again, I'm sure they're not the same for each, but collectively, would I be able to sort of gauge impact of the respective activities? For example, I don't know what the learning outcomes may be for, the Grand Rapids Civic Theater in second grade, but obviously there's some outcomes associated with that activity, and just wondering a bit how we could kind of see, or is there any data available on any of these as far as how they support and impacted any outcomes?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, if you want to talk about the evaluation process.
Sure. For the arts enrichment field trips, we always do an exit evaluation. These are also funded by the foundation. So we do a couple different types of exit evaluation for those. We ask teachers for input. So the classroom teacher or the arts teacher who goes on the field trip with the students, we ask them for feedback. Also, students at the end have an opportunity to have their voice heard. And then we also circle back with the partner organization to find out how the field trip went from their perspective too, because we also want to be good partners and show value to them. And so reassessing at all times. So we look at that and determine, do things need to change? Did this meet the targeted area that we've identified as this being the exits outcome for that, and then going back and revamping. We are revising. We've been meeting with the Graham regularly to revise the language artist field trip as an example, because our ELA content standards have changed. So that program, while the structure is the same, the outcome it will be different. So we're targeting different strategies so that we're setting up our scholars to be successful.
Thank you.
And I was just going to ask, when there's a field trip outside of these regularly scheduled field trips, is there a process for asking, hey, can my class go on this field trip?
Yeah, so we have a highly vetted or highly vetting process, and so it is something that goes to the principal first and then comes to the appropriate executive director for sign off, and it's a couple different things. First, from the safety aspect, right, to make sure that all of those bases are covered. Do we have enough supervision? What does that supervision look like? What is the emergency plan should something happen? But then also from the standards piece of it that Maggie just referenced, does this fit tightly with the standards of that grade level? And if so, how? And then how are you going to expand upon it, either pre or post or both, to make sure that it's just not one event in time, but has continuous learning? And so that's the process. And then, of course, we look for all of those pieces to be in place, but then also to ensure that if this is a great opportunity for this school or this grade level, should it be something that we spread amongst other buildings and other grade levels as well?
And I also would just throw out there that as a parent, and maybe it's because I'm in education, but I think a lot of parents would appreciate knowing, instead of just getting the permission slip, like knowing we're going to cover these standards and this is what we're doing prior to the trip and this is what we're doing after the trip. Because to me, that just, it just emphasizes the importance of what we're doing.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that also probably gives parents an opportunity to unpack the trip a little bit more in a constructive way to kind of reinforce whatever learning happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely
Like,
helps the parents.
here's some questions you should ask your student when they come home instead of, was it fun?
Right? Mhm. Sure, and bringing the parent along, right, to partner with us in that process. If a parent goes on the trip, what does that look like? If a parent is not able to, then what can they do at home to help experience it almost secondhand? So.
Any questions over there?
I don't have any questions, no.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our agenda items for this evening. At this time or via email, please let me know future topics on which you would like us to present. Ms. Davis, you talked about the transition to college mathematics that was brought up at the board meeting on Monday, so
Yeah, do you feel like we could use some more information on
if
that?
you'd like a little more
Or you
information on
can-
that, that's fine, we can do
What
that.
the program, what the pilot would look like, is that what
The
you're?
Alex, yeah.
Yeah, so we can bring that to this group if you'd like, so that's one suggestion. Any others?
I'm wondering when is a good time to revisit the conversation around the academies at Ottawa?
Okay.
Do you feel like,
Yeah, so we did that a couple of meetings ago. I know Mr. Lewis
Right.
Presented. Might it be a good idea to maybe wait a couple of meetings and then show the progress that we're making? Is that
that's
okay?
kind of why I'm asking, and I know that the full board is having questions. So, no rush
Yep.
if there's still progress being made, but whenever there is some progress to
Absolutely.
report on, that would be great.
Absolutely.
The other thing, kind of along those lines, maybe not next meeting, but something to kind of keep in mind, because I feel like it's been a while since we visited it, is the teacher evaluations. I know a couple years ago, we were really pushing, maybe assessing that. And with COVID and everything, it kind of,
Yeah, that's a good idea because there have been some modifications that have
Okay.
been made this year to address some of the issues, related to COVID
okay.
and staff shortages and things of that nature. So I will make sure that Eric tees that up for next time. If you have any other topics, just please let Ms. Davis know, and she and I will connect and put those together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I will adjourn the meeting. Have a good night.